Hi there, Pedro from Cathy Fishing, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is Pedro, and welcome to Cathy Fishing. We are a fishing family that's here out of our home state, New Jersey, and we are a fishing family that started in 2019 doing YouTube, but we've been fishing for a few more years, and we've gone fishing up and down the Jersey coast, locating almost every species, some fresh, but mostly saltwater. So thank you for clicking on this video. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, and that would help us a lot. But in this video, I'm doing a tutorial. It's January, it's winter time. Snowy, it's icy, it's cold. So I took this time to do, you know what, why not? Let's do a knot tying tutorial. Knots is one of the most important things in fishing, coming down with a fishing rod and a fishing reel. So today I'm going to teach you guys my favorite knots, and you can use these in the spring. And these are my favorite knots that I'd like to use out on the water. So let's dive into the video. So we're going to start off using some loop knots. And loop knots you use mostly for lures, hooks, and weights. So let's get into it. So the first knot that I like tying the most is a surgeon's loop. The surgeon's loop I like using for sometimes baits, but mostly weight fishing, like leads. So I have Tsunami Pro Fluorocarbon, Pro Grade Fluorocarbon here. This is pink. And what I like to use and how you start off a surgeon's loop, right? So I like to take up some leader, and this is your main line up your leader. I like to take up some leader. And what you want to do is you want to take a tag end and fold it right in half, and it makes this little loop. So what I do is I pinch the loop, I have my tag end and main line. I pinch those. I wrap it around my index finger, and it comes this create little loop. I create this little loop. I pull it out of my index. I pinch the loop that I created first. You could do it 1 or 2 times. I do it 2 times. Next, to make sure it evens, because the knot can be uneven since it's a loop, what I do is I take my index, run it down the middle, and pull. And there you go. There's a surgeon's loop. It's a nice little loop. And got the tag end, of course. Don't want any tag ends. The reason you don't want a tag end is because sometimes it gets tangled in your main line or your weight. So that's why clip the tag end. And like I said, I like using this for weights, hooks, and lures. But I usually use this for weights. I got a 3-ounce weight. And the way I put on this is a cannonball. Put it through the eye of the weight. Right, open it up, pull it through, and there you go. And that is the surgeon's loop. It's a really nice loop that I like to use for rig fishing. You can use this for jig heads, lures, multiple other things. It's just not for weights, but my main use for this is weights. But it's a really useful knot, and it's a really strong knot. Like, you cannot break this knot. Can't break it at all. And the way, if you want to take it off the weight, is that you just reverse it basically. Since I cut it, I just open it, put it back through the loop, and out you go. So a really nice surgeon's loop, it's called. It's a really nice loop, really nice knot. That's one of my favorite knots to use. So the next knot that I like to use, it's another one of my favorite loop knots. It's just called a loop knot, right? So the way you want to tie this rig, right, this loop. So here I have a Tsunami 4-inch swim shad. Favorite lures to use off for spring, for striped bass, and also in the fall. Now the reason I like using this knot is because sometimes in the springtime, using like a tactical angler's clip or a snap-on barrel swivel, it scares away the lethargic striped bass in the spring and in the fall. So that's why I like using this knot for my lures, because it cuts down in the bait. It looks natural. So what you want to do is you want to take your fluorocarbon and monofilament or monofilament. And what you want to do is I like to take the less tag end that you take, the smaller the loop. But I do a pretty nice size, right? And I fold it. Make this little X here. Next, what I want to do is I want to push the tag end through that, right? I don't want to make it too small. I want to keep it around that size, right? Next, what you want to do is you want to take your shad and that tag end, you want to put it through the eye of the shad. Next, you just want to do a simple overhand knot, and you want to wrap towards the main line. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like that. Next, you created 2 little loops here, right? You want to put the tag end through both loops, or else the knot won't be tied. Since they're both nice and tight. Sometimes you wet it, make sure it's nice and tight. There you go, there's your loop knot. Now, it's very similar to a surgeon's loop, but there's a pretty big difference. Got the tag end there. So the difference between a regular loop knot and a surgeon's loop is that because the surgeon's loop, it doesn't quite let your lure swing if you're using it. Now, sometimes you don't need it to swing. It's just nice and straight. But I like this loop knot because it helps the bait swing or sway in the water. So it's free basically, right? So I can move it this way, that way, all around. And in the water, a swim shad swims like this, right? But with this loop knot, it'll sway more. So it'll have like this action and this action too. So that's why I like using this loop knot for striped bass fishing, for tautog fishing, and for flounder fishing. It's a really useful knot and one of my favorite knots to use for a loop knot. The only downside is that you're going to have to cut it because it's just nice and tight, so you can't take it off like the surgeon's loop. That's the only bad thing. Alright, so one more loop, knot that I want to do in the loop category is called the dropper loop. So this dropper loop is mostly used for rigs, either teaser rigs or just high-low rigs, right? So what I mean by that, so down here, if I'm tying a regular rig, right, I have my fluorocarbon or monofilament. First things first is I want to do a surgeon's loop. Like before, do it around my index, pull out the index, put a loop through. I'll just do 1, but I usually do 2. Cut the tag end, right? Now, you can put a bucktail or a weight to the bottom of this surgeon's loop. I'm just going to put a weight there, right? There's your surgeon's loop. Now, with a dropper loop, you want to come up 6 to a foot, right, to make this loop, right? You want to give yourself some leader. Now, you want to take the section, more leader, makes the dropper loop bigger, but I'll make it about there. Next, you want to fold it right in half, right? You have the two leaders. You want to fold it right in half. Next is what I do is I pinch it and I turn it around. 1, 2, 3, 4, right, and 5. When I'm turning it, I keep this like little mouth open. I call it the mouth, right? Next, when I have all my wraps, I usually do 4 or 5 or 6 wraps. Bigger the wraps, tougher to tie. So I'll tie 5 to 6 times, then I open up the mouth of the rig, right, of the knot, and that loop that I created, I pull it back. I don't know why my hands are, there you go. I pull it back. Next, like grabbing it with my teeth. Wet it, and if it's not budging, just give it a nice little tug. There you go. There is your dropper loop. So the dropper loop you could use for putting on hooks. I got a Tsunami Soltex octopus hook here. You can use this with, in the springtime, I like using these Tsunami Soltex inline circle hooks for striped bass fishing when I'm using bait. And you just put it through the eye. I like to wrap it once, then do a cross and put it twice, right, so it's nice and secure. And there you go. There is a nice little rig, and that's how you tie a dropper loop. So the dropper loop, as you see, you can have it for single. If you're using for toe talk fishing, what I do is I cut this down nice and short, and I make the surgeon's loop a little bigger and the dropper loop a little bigger. But typically for striped bass fishing, white perch fishing, and flounder fishing, I like to keep it about this same length. Maybe the dropper loop, I do it a little bigger so it sways and swings in the water. It's nice and free. But that is my simple rig right here. Nice little simple rig. One of my favorite knots to use when I'm tying rigs. It's just a really nice knot to use, and when you get real good at it, you can tie it in seconds. So when you get real good at knot tying, you can do these knots in seconds. And I encourage you guys to pause the video, go back, grab a piece of leader. I suggest leader because some of these knots, when you're tying braid, it's a little difficult. But I suggest fluorocarbon or monofilament leader. Grab a scissor, grab a weight, grab a hook, and just start practicing these knots. These knots are really nice. My favorite knots to use in the spring. So I encourage you guys to do that. So there is a dropper loop, the surgeon's loop, and also a dropper loop? A loop knot. I don't know. A loop knot, yes. My brain. A dropper loop, a loop knot, and a surgeon's loop. So that is for the knot loop category, we'll say. And the way you take it off is that you reverse it like any knot, right? There you go. Same thing for the weight. Whoop. There you go. So the next knot that I like to do is actually a line-to-line connection knot. These knots, what they do is they cut down in the middle. If you're using like a barrel swivel or a snap-on barrel swivel, sometimes, mostly barrel swivels, sometimes when you're fishing, the fish don't really like that metal. So to cut down on the metal and keep it nice, more finesse and natural, it's a line-to-line connection, which is braid, your main line, to monofilament. So I'm going to show you guys two of my favorite knots that I like to use for line-to-line connection. So for a line-to-line connection knot, right, I got some 30-pound braid here. And here's what we want to do. So let me get stuff out of the way here. All right. So got your leader and you got your braid, right? Grab the end of my leader here, or my braid. So here you go. You got your braid and you got your leader. First knot I'm going to show is a uni to uni knot. This uni to uni knot is one of the strongest knots that I use for fishing. Usually people say a mini twist knot or a FG knot or a what else? Or a blood knot. Those are the strongest knots, but I want to keep it simple, and sometimes those knots take a while to do. So just to keep it simple for you guys, I'm going to do a uni to uni knot and a reverse Alberto knot. Let's get into it. So got my braid and I got my leader. We're going to start off with a uni to uni knot, right? Take both tag ends and I give myself a good amount of each. So next I want to cross both, and I like doing monofilament first or fluorocarbon because you can cut it down and fine it down a lot more, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So first things first is I take my fluorocarbon tag end and I wrap it over, creating like a little X here. See? Right over both lines. Next with the tag end, I want to wrap towards the braid. So I do 1, 2, 3, and 4 wraps. Now you want to pull the tag end. Just the tag end. You want to pull the tag end, right? All the way down. Now, as you can see, there is some friction there, right? The knot's not all the way down. Now I wet it, and what I do is I take my thumbnail and I fine it down. Much easier doing monofilament first, then braid. So now, on the other side, I want to do the exact same thing over on the braided side. I want to cross over, make a loop, go 1, 2, 3, 4. But you want to do double of what you did. So I did 4 wraps with my my fluorocarbon. I'm going to do 8 wraps with my braid. So I'm at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do the same thing. Pull the tag end, and the braid just finds down nice and tight. So now I want to take my both knots on each end and pull. And both knots come together. And next, I wet it a little bit. And there you go. One of the strongest knots and simplest knots that I use. Cut the braid. Now you want to cut down as much as you possibly can with the monofilament or fluorocarbon that you're using on the leader side. And there you go. I could cut down this a lot more. There you go. And there is your uni to uni knot. Super simple, super easy, and one of the fastest knots. Like I said, when you get good at it, you can tie this knot in seconds. Super, super fast. So one of my favorite knots to use for line-to-line connection. And you can use this for any leader. 50, you can use it with 50-pound fluorocarbon or monofilament to use. One of my favorite knots to use as well. Now we're going to go on to the second one. The second one is called the reverse Alberto knot. And actually invented by Crazy Alberto Knee. Or Alberto Knee. We call him Crazy Alberto Knee. So here is how we do that one. So what you want to do is you want to take your braid, right? And you want to make a big loop. Just like you're doing a surgeon's loop. You want to make super big. Alright. Now, I usually pinch it halfway. And I take my leader and I pull it through. Next, what I want to do is that I want to wrap it towards the tag end that I have in the main line. So what I'll do is I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll do 8 times. Next, what you want to do is you want to fold it and put the tag end back through the loop. So, can you open up? Thank you. Alright. It is through. Now what you want to do is you want to slowly, not rapidly pull, but slowly pull both ends with both tag ends. Now pull. Gotta pull the tag end too, so I'll pull that. There you go. So keep pulling on both ends, and there you got your reverse Alberto knot. Super simple, super easy. And to cut down, what I do is I cut down super, super tight. Super, 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 super small. Right? And sometimes if you don't do enough wraps, it will slip, right? And you're going to have to do it again. So let's just say, all right, cut an end, right? All right, I cut an end. Oh, it snapped on me. You always want to test these knots. I cut an end here. So, what do you want to do? Cut a good amount, all right? Cut a good end. Do the same thing, all right? Go through, whoop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll do 10 wraps. Put it right back through. Now this time, it's not slipping, it's not going anywhere, right? Sometimes 1 or 2 So if it slips one time, just do a few more wraps. Super tight, super easy. Cut the tag end, of course. That's it. There you go. There's your reverse Alberto knot. Super strong, super easy to do. And like I said, when you get good at it, it only takes you a few seconds. Some people prefer to do it with a surgeon's loop, with a big surgeon's loop, and tie it, right? A surgeon's loop and a reverse Alberto knot, but whatever you guys prefer, like I said, comment down below and try both ways. I would love to hear you guys, your feedback in the springtime using these knots and catching some fish, hopefully. And three more knots I want to talk to you guys about that I love to use for lure fishing. 3 more knots. So here I got a Tsunami Swim Shad, a Tsunami Tighter Pro Twitch bait, and a Tsunami Tighter Pro eye pop. And I'm going to teach you guys some knots that I like to use in the springtime for these 3 lures. Things first is we're going to tie a Uni Knot, polymer knot, and a clinch knot, and also an improved clinch knot. So I guess that's 4. So let's start with the Uni knot. So it's not a uni to uni knot. It's not a line to line connection, but it's a simple Uni knot. So what you want to do is you want to take your tag end, put it through the eye of the shad. I'd like to take some nice amount. Next, I fold the leader right in half, right? And what I do is I wrap with the loop toward up the line. So that's 1, 2, 3. I don't do that many wraps, right? Next, what I want to do is I want to take the tag end and put it through that loop, right? Sometimes if it's all messed up, there you go. Now, with my, right? Next, go down, and you want to pull the tag end up again if it goes down, and there's your Uni knot. Cut the tag end, and there you go, there's your Uni knot. Super strong, super simple, super easy to tie knot. Doesn't take that long to do, and one of my favorite knots to use for lure fishing, especially in the spring and the fall season for striped bass fishing. So that's one of them. Next, I'm going to tie one on the Tighter Pro Twitch bait. So this one is a fisherman's knot or a clinch knot. So what you want to do is you want to take your tag end, right? And I usually just slide it down, right? Slide it down. And what I want to do is I want to cross it over and wrap towards it like the Uni knot, but without the loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll do 6 wraps. You can do 6 or 7. Next, I grab the tag end and put it through that loop, a loop that I created. Next, you tighten down, and there is your clinch knot. It's a super nice knot to use. I like using it for lure fishing. Super strong. It takes some less time than tying a Uni knot, but they're both equally strong. One is less. It doesn't cut down that much time, but it doesn't matter when you get good at it, it doesn't matter at all. So that's really nice. And I'm also going to show you guys the improved one, the improved clinch knot or improved fisherman's knot. So what it consists is that you do just like a clinch knot, right? That I just showed. You want to wrap 6 or 7 times, doesn't matter. I'll wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And what you do is you put it through the loop, but if you pull up like that, there's a second loop. You put it through, and now you got a improved clinch knot. What you do is if it's stuck up there, just with your fingernail, you bring it down, and there you go. There's the improved clinch knot. A little bit stronger than the clinch knot, but it doesn't really matter. They're both really, really strong, really easy to tie. Those two are another one of my favorite knots to use for lure fishing. Last but not least, on the knot list, we have a polymer knot. So a polymer knot is used in freshwater fish. It started in freshwater fishing, but what we did in the saltwater group is that we improved it. We did more wraps, and it is super, super strong. So let's get into it. So first things first is with your loop, with your leader, you want to create a loop, right? And what you want to do is you want to pinch it and put it through the eye of the bait, right? So I got it through the eye of the bait. Now what you want to do is you want to fold it over and bring the loop through this little loop here. Next, you want to take the bait and that loop that you created at first, you want to slide it down like you're doing a surgeon's loop, right? You want to slide the bait down the loop. Next, you want to pull it nice and tight. And there you go. So that's the original polymer knot, right? Nice and tight. But to make it much stronger, we do a few overhand knots, right? Nice and tight. A few overhand knots. Nice and tight. And boom. There you have a polymer knot. Super strong, super tight. Cut down that tag end a little more. And it's just a really nice knot to use. Really nice. I like using it. All four knots, I could say, I love using. Some are stronger, some are easier to tie. I use some on different occasions, but it's just all three knots are really nice. And actually, all the knots that I tied in this video, I use for basically everything. They're my go-to knots. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I want to thank you guys for clicking on this video. If you're new here, like I said in the beginning, please subscribe. Comment down below what you think of the video. I would love to hear from you guys. If you guys try these knots out, I would love to hear your experience on them. Please like, share to your family, friends, and like I said, subscribe. Almost to 2,000. All the support you guys have been giving us has been incredible. But without further ado, life is better when you add fish and water. And don't forget to click this video right up here.